Hello. Do you have a SaaS business or no? Did they scare you off now? No, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I figured like it's a 240 slot, so like it should be two people and prepared for two people. If there was a third person, I couldn't do it. So no, don't worry, it's all right. But yeah, thanks for sharing. This topic is actually inspired because come from Croatia. It's a Balkan country, and a lot of founders in Croatia try to build products for Croatia or like Serbia or like a general Balkan market, which is a small market. It's 20 million people, and I kind of feel like it's a wrong way to do.
30?
No, 21 million. So ex-Yugoslavia is 21 million, which is nothing, right? Compared to like any major, like Poland is 40 million. So even Poland is double the size of the whole, like it's 7 countries in the Balkan region. So this is a ex-boss of mine, former colleague of mine, Sarah Archer, from a company called ChartMogul. And it's a subscription analytics software that we basically sold to founders all over Europe, US, Asia. It's basically like profitable. I don't know if you guys use some of these like that, look at your churn, MRR, LTV. Do you have any kind of analytics around that?
I don't have tools to monitor, but
yeah.
I'm not monitoring it.
You have your own sheets. Yeah, well, basically what I did there, I was an account executive, I was selling ChartMogul, and that's the tool that kind of replaces Sheets. And reason I mentioned it is because she said that the demand gen is like the hardest non-technical problem to solve, and I totally agree with that notion. So if you're a founder, your basically first problem that you're solving, which is not technical, is demand generation. So what happens is like you usually want to sell on your local market, and it makes sense. Like you have an advantage, it's your local market, you can basically pull in your contacts, some strings, and get your product out there. And I agree, I think that's a good start, but I think there is some other ways to think about it. My name is Leo. I actually run a SaaS conference in Croatia. It's called SaaStanak. It's a conference basically made out of founders who are on the road to 10 million ARR. So most of the founders that talked at the conference were at that road, being on 1 million, 5 million, 7 million. So they kind of share their own playbooks. And we, of course, being a small market, we kind of feel for like basically founders that are kind of up and up, coming up in this industry. So I did 3 years as an account executive in ChartMogul, and then 1 year in M&A, in origination for SaaS Group. You might have seen some of the keynotes or branding from SaaS Group. They're a software aggregator, so they buy SaaS companies. And what I did for them, I was basically searching for these companies, together with Dirk, who had a keynote yesterday here. This is. I think his flight is today, so I think he already left. I messaged him a couple of times, but after lunch, I think he just went for a nap. So, yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, I hope you'll enjoy the show. Yeah, this is the conference, actually. It was 400 people. It was in Zagreb. It was pretty cool. I think we did a good job. Next year, we're doing this basically same concept, 2 stages. One is founder stage, the other one is operational. So you have like people like Chris from Value Ships, like doing pricing stuff on the operational stage. And then on the founder stage, you have mostly founders from Balkans or abroad, like Poland, Czech Republic, etc. And next year, we're doing it on the coast. So it's vacation plus conference, I guess. That's the selling point. We are a largest SaaS community in CEE, so basically we do events in all of the Balkan countries, and we're going to do first events in Poland and Slovakia this year. So, go ahead.
Do you have members outside of the Balkans?
As in, it's not a membership community, it's basically, events. So we have people coming to events from all over.
Yeah, let's take the event of this year.
Yeah.
How many outside people how many percentage of the people were outside the Balkans? Like French, Spanish, German, Italian.
So I'll tell you, we had 2 French guys. It was Colin, the CEO of this conference, and Louis Dessol from Partech Partners. Okay. Yeah, so there was 2 French guys. We can make it 3 next year. No, but we had, I would say, like from 400 people, there was around 70 people that were foreign, so not from Balkans, mostly speakers at this point. But as we move the conference to the coast, I expect like more international people to come, as it's, you know, nicer venue, nicer location. People kind of want to, it's May, so people would want to kind of, you know, do a work vacation kind of thing. And we can get better speakers, which is always good. So yeah, this is the event. We did also a lot of these small events, which are like a meetup style. That's how we kind of gain, that's our lead gen strategy, is basically doing smaller meetups with SaaS businesses in their offices. And this is what I'm trying to talk about today. I mean, Christoph Jans is one of the, I would say, like more prominent investors here in Europe. Point9 is one of the most successful pre-seed seed VCs. And he has this framework that basically outlines 5 ways to build a 100 million ARR SaaS business. And it has different types of businesses you could build. So you could have a business that sells to mice, rabbits, deers, elephants, and whales. And I think this analogy, or like, let's say metaphor, can kind of bring you some lights on where you're at in the space. So mouses and rabbits are kind of companies that sell with average contract value up to $1,000 of ARR. So think of task management tools, like B2C tools, basically tools that have been sold on a subscription basis, but very low subscription sizes. So companies that can, you know, sell time tracking, for example. Their main demand generation strategy is virality. So most of these companies have some kind of feedback loop into it. So recommend this software to someone else, or they have like their in-app store, so they have like a marketplace kind of strategy. But virality is super important. And they need a huge target account, so basically huge TAM to get to significant ARR. And my thesis is it's kind of impossible to do it in a single European country. All of the B2C kind of apps, wherever they are started, they always go abroad because a single country cannot support, and you need like huge numbers because you have large drop-off, you have high CAC because you're relying on a lot of PPC, so you need the volume. So I have 2 examples of Balkan founders doing in that category. So one of them is Clockify, and this is a business that is a time tracking tool. And it's basically, I don't know if you see the slides, it's basically, if you type in time tracking into Google, is the first result that pop out. They started that for like, I think 10 years ago. The founder bootstrapped from an agency and basically got to 4 million users with 0.02% conversion rate. And they do around like 60, 70 million ARR. So this is a Serbian founder that basically, when I put him on the stage, first thing he said, move to the Bay Area. And I know like that's basically not the strategy for everyone. It's not viable for every product. It doesn't make sense for everyone, and depends on your stage in life. But his point was clear. Like, if you want to do international business, be international yourself, which means like you have to be basically putting yourself out there. And in that mind, basically for them, it was like having a right strategy, good SEO, and him being in right spots in the US where he could actually talk and hire experts that could help him out with that. So main team is in Serbia, but couple of key growth figures, key people in the company who are in charge of like go-to-market and growth are US based. And those are his personal hires. And that's one example of why I think like you should kind of think about international first. But it doesn't matter if you're starting with like first customers in France, your main objective, main goal of the company is international scaling. Doist is a second example. I don't know if you know the company Doist. They have a tool called Todoist. They have a pretty good brand. The guy, Amir, he's a Bosnian guy from Jajce. He lived his life mostly in Denmark, moved to Barcelona. He married a Spanish girl, moved to Barcelona, and he runs a fully remote company. He could have basically done all of it in Bosnia, or like hiring mostly Bosnian engineers, but he didn't. And I think like if you look at from like a P&L perspective, yeah, of course, hiring Bosnian engineers, it would be smarter P&L kind of thing. But he needed good product people, he needed good design people, and people with experience. And he went fully remote, agnostic to location, and basically scaled the product to 20 million ARR. It's mostly B2C product, and it's actually the way they kind of sell is their brand. So if you look at their website, the whole core mission, the branding of all of the products they have in this Doist family, it's all about the brand. And his own brand as a founder promotes remote, promotes being global, international first. And I think like it's important. You embody your company, and that's why you as a founder can basically send the message across, and his message is like go international from day one. It doesn't matter if you're based in your own country, you're competing globally. And I think that's pretty important. Deers and elephants are companies with ACV up to 100K. So ChartMogul, the company I worked for, would fall into this category. You have basically kind of mid-market, enterprise A's, SDRs. You have SMB, SDRs, and A's. It depends on where your company is selling at. I think every kind of market is kind of different. Sometimes you need a local presence, sometimes you don't. But most commonly, it starts out with local logos. So I don't know, how is it for you? Yeah, but no, how is it for you? Like when you started with selling, like would you, basically, did you do the sales calls? Did you go to the like local vendors?
We are deploying many different strategies, but we are participating to trade shows. We are doing cold emailing. We are also creating content about our profession. We are networking in various organizations, and we are. Yeah, it's a. The means are quite traditional, and the bills range from 20 to 200 a year annual recurring revenue. Yeah, it's a lot of outbound, but we are trying to create as much conditions as we can to have more inbound. But it's the company was just set up 1 year ago, so it's a lot of work to create brand awareness and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your main customers are developers, real estate developers?
They are real estate developers.
Okay. Yeah, real estate developers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only real estate developers.
Yeah, no, I understand. Prior to ChartMogul, I sold a construction CAD software called Allplan. I don't know if you know Nemetschek Group.
Allplan?
Yeah, Allplan is a German version of AutoCAD. Yeah.
Okay.
I sold that in the Balkans, so I have a little bit of knowledge about like real estate industry in general and construction industry. It's a challenging market, but people pick up the phones in real estate.
They do.
And that's a big difference from SaaS. Like I sold ChartMogul, so it's a SaaS business back to SaaS. No one uses phones. Cold calling doesn't matter. Like having like these, let's say, traditional industries have better go-to-market approaches in my mind than like SaaS, because you could do stuff manually, so you can actually call people.
Yeah, when you make 100,000 a year on one customer, you can spend time, you can send people on visits and so on. It's not the same as when you make 1,000 a year.
No, absolutely. But even if you're like software contracts, like if you try to call someone who is I don't know, chief security officer at Atlassian, no way you're gonna get him on the phone. You're not going to, but you might get like someone in a big real estate development company on the phone, because his whole work is people calling him. So he doesn't have the luxury of, turning it off. And we in SaaS, we're on Slack or, Teams or whatever. So it's a different ball game. And I think like this is one of the things that I'm going to talk about, and it's actually pretty important. How is it for you? Like when you look at your sales?
For me to say, I'm still doing a sale with friends. I'm doing most of the sales. They do pick up the phone as current owners, but it tends to be difficult to explain to them over the phone what we exactly do. Like they don't really like understand our value proposition in a very clear way. Without a screen and a presentation, you have to be way more like straight to the point. And we're learning to do that.
So how do you usually like start the conversation? I mean, do you go from like value prop, like you're going to increase your?
It depends on who we're talking with.
Oh, so it's camera. We're recording. Okay, sorry, should have told me about that.
No, I was saying it's. What was the question again?
So my question was, when you call them, like what do you actually say to them? Because it's software. And like I would assume it's a hard conversation to even start. Like that's not something they think about daily.
Yeah, basically it depends on who we talk with, because most of our strategy is cold calling. So we would just cold call either the restaurant and ask to speak to any kind of manager. And there we're really starting out of nowhere. So we have to introduce ourselves quickly to just present us as a tool, a digital tool that can help them achieve more revenue. and then discuss very quickly if this is a good time to understand how they function. But our point is just to close booking at that stage, a demo stage. So we don't really dig too much. We just want to have him talk about it, whatever issues he's having at the time. Or if we have, when we have more qualified lead and have access to the founder of a restaurant group or the operational manager of a restaurant group, we may, in that case, be much more direct and be like, we visited your group, we've seen how you guys function, this is how we can help you out.
Which is, I think, that's basically the way you should do it. You kind of go from the problem up, and then kind of you can present the problem, and then you say, hey, I have a software for it. But what is like the average contract value that you have, like when you sell?
Contract value, we start at 200 a month per location. It's a yearly contract, and our target is 5 to 10 location. So we're in the 5,000 range.
Okay. So I would say, like, when it comes to, if you're comfortable to share, like, how big, you said you have 3-person team, like, how big are you in ARR?
We're very, very early stage. We started basically a year ago, and at the moment we have about 30 paying customers. So ARR amounts is in the 10,000 range.
Okay, makes sense. And for you, like, how big the company is?
We are 16 and we are making more. Okay.
Everyone watching now is the show.
We're a team of 16. We're based in Bordeaux, by the way.
Yeah.
And we are making roughly 500,000 recurring revenue.
And from, like, how much customers do you have?
Around 10.
Around
so
10.
very small customer base, but they generate money.
And that's like, when you look at it, it's basically...
The elephants.
Yeah, you're starting from a similar, like, date and time, and there is, like, two totally different even revenue and strategies that you could employ. I think, like, when you compare these two businesses, I mean, you both work in the industries that are outside of software. So some of the traditional stuff, like cold calling, even postcards and stuff like that would work. But the trick is it worth it for you? It's worth for first couple of customers because you need logos, but is it actually worth it in terms of like a scaling strategy? Like, if you continue doing that, it's going to take 10 years to get to a number that he has. So it's like kind of a decision point where, do you invest in brand more, or do you invest in, like, virality more than cold calling? I don't have a silver bullet solution for it, but I think it's interesting because it shows you, like, how different these two motions are. Like, advice you get is totally different than his advice. I'll just continue with the slides, and then we can basically have a chat about this. But there's these couple companies. There's two companies I'm going to highlight from the Balkans that are in this range up to 100K. One is Productive. It's a bootstrapped business from an agency business. So it's like a operating system for agencies. You have time tracking, you have CRM, billing, everything in one software. And they have around 100 employees. And the founder actually also lived in SF, but for his agency business. He didn't even, at that point, he didn't have the SaaS business. But he said this thing that stuck with me was they were lucky that no one wanted to buy Productive in Croatia when they were starting out, because it forced them to go with an international first strategy. And I think, like, when you think about your business, it's like, well, how big is the potential market, and what can I do from day one to actually be on that market? If you limit yourself to France, if you create a go-to-market motion which is basically manned and performs in France, it doesn't mean like you could perform in other countries. And the reason why I mentioned that, okay, we have this one, and then I'll tell you. Treble is another company, VC-backed, but the founder is actually constantly on the road. And the thing is, this is a Datadog competitor. So his main customers are banks. And the way he gets other banks to sign up with him is by showing the logos of previous banks. So for him, if he closed a Croatian bank, if he spent 2 years closing a Croatian bank, it would be worth nothing. But if he spends 2 years closing one English bank, Barclays or someone, he has an interest to everyone else. And I think this is how you need to think about your logos. Like, what is the top dog logo I can get? Because, for example, 30 restaurants that are, in this neighborhood here, as opposed to like central neighborhood or someone really big, is might be like, okay, better ARR, but is it the best worth of your time? Like, do you think you're going to close more logos because of these logos? And I think like if you think of it that thing in mind, then it's obvious, like it's hard to scale. For example, when you look at your business, like it's hard to scale it abroad in general because you need like a high amount of users, you need high volume. But brand-wise, if you had top 3 French restaurants, it might even be worth to like advertise that to rest of Europe. So like you have an advantage here, which is actual local advantage, but what I wanted to mention with like not starting locally is logos are usually not the advantage. So maybe for you it might even be. Typical answer is we'll have an easier way to get the first revenue focus on local businesses. And I think like why not do that is first of all time. If you spend time on the local to market, that's basically time you're adding to this journey. I think this is ChartMobile's research. So median SaaS business needs 2 years, 3 years to actually get to 1 million ARR, around 5 years to get to 10 million. And this data has a survivorship bias because most of the businesses don't get to 10 million ARR. So these are the businesses that actually get to that point. They still need more than 5 years to do that in median. And these 2 years of like selling locally, that's 2 years you're not building a local brand. You're not building a global brand. That's 2 years of not building hiring a global team. That's 2 years of not training your go-to-market to actually sell to customers abroad. And that's 2 years of you being, as a founder, being stuck in your local environment and not going abroad. And I think if you look at it from that perspective, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's going to take you 10 years anyways. Like this is a 10-year journey anyways, and then you're adding 2 more years to it, or 3 more years, or however. Good logos is one thing that I mentioned. Fortune 500 companies, if you have an ambition to sell into US, I think like making sure that you get a foot into the door in any of these companies, doesn't need to be Fortune 500, but it needs to be somewhere on the map in US, is the way to actually scale into US. So frequent trips, like doing whatever you can, presenting yourself not as a French company, not as a Croatian Balkan company, but as a global company. The way you do it is by closing international logos. And that's where I'm not speaking here like this is not a recipe for success. It's just like you have a choice where you can basically focus your effort and time. And I think focusing 2-3 years into like that kind of goal is better than actually closing some business here, because that's how the businesses actually scale. Right go-to-market, like in all of the sales roles, I've been doing sales for 10 years now. In all of the sales roles, wherever I came and basically whatever I did, go-to-market is like a muscle and you kind of have to build it. So you're not only building your own strategy, you're building the people that are doing that strategy. So if you're selling locally for 2-3 years, what happens is these salespeople know how to sell here, but they don't know how to sell abroad. And then you need to rehire the whole team. So can you actually expand the whole new team to do that? Can you force your sales team to convert to something else? You have a different opinion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Our software is quite complex and very linked to the process of selling real estate, to the process of building it, to the process of financing it, to the tax, to the regulations, and so on. So it takes a fair amount of effort to make it adapted to, for instance, even a closed market such as Spain or Italy or Germany. It takes a fair bit of effort. So we are not going abroad because it's hard to sell. It's because we don't have the product yet. And it will take us a lot of time in a period where we are still building some of the basics of the product for the French market. So that's how I think. But we definitely aim at going abroad, and my previous company was doing 70% of its business abroad. So it's even strange for me to not have that. But that's the way it is for now. But I'm still questioning it because the French market is quite depressed.
I mean, do you want to add something to it? But one thing that is, curious then, like, why don't you build for US? I mean, it's a much bigger market instead of like localizing for Spain or, Germany. Is there a reason?
So
the story is that we built the software within a real estate developer, and we incubated it there. And it took like 5 years with 7 people full-time for building it for the French market, and it's not yet finished. So we have this history that we are bringing with us, but also it means that we'll have to spend a fair amount of time to build it for maybe 10 to 20 or 30% compared to what we have already for the US market and for each of the local markets that we would like to address.
Makes sense, makes sense. I mean, it is a tricky thing if you have to expend the resources up front before selling it, because you're kind of taking the risk up front. But there is probably ways to kind of test out the market before that. And usually with maybe smaller products, like as I mentioned, like Productive, they have like a suite of products. So billing, for example, for Productive doesn't work in any region other than Balkans, or I think US and Balkans. So basically for them, it's a hardest product to build because they need to build it for every region they sell to. But time tracking works everywhere. So I think like if you can compartmentalize like this software into like smaller pieces, or at least have some sort of like demand gen going through something free resources, webinars, whatever, PDFs, ebooks, influencing, then you can already test the market in a way. And
Agreed.
That's the point I'm trying to make with like right GTM. Like because you're doing this stuff, you're gonna find out what works. So my thinking is like if you're doing 2-3 years selling into France, you know only thing that you learned is what worked for France. You haven't learned what works for US. You haven't worked it out what works for Germany. And I think like this is the important part, because in all of the sales roles I had, like it was a trial and error process, and you needed time to figure it out. If it's cold calling, great. Like how can we make that cold calling better? Do you work on scripts? Do you hire more people? Do you go volume, or you go deep, wide, whatever? And every software is different. Every industry is different. So the right GTM is not something you're gonna hear from me or read on LinkedIn. It's what you're gonna find. And if you're doing that on a market that is basically limited, you're limiting yourself. So I think that's a pretty important point. Better hires. I mean, I always tout our own horn whenever I go. Like I like Balkan people, good workers, everything, but we don't know how to do good sales and marketing. And I would bet my ass that there is not a lot of these people in France or Germany, or they are in US, they are in UK, and they're expensive as hell. So these people you need to find, and that's why you need like a remote global talent pool. Growth and salespeople, they exist everywhere, but they are few and far between, and they're expensive if they're in US, but you can probably find people who are expats. You can find people who are actually worked for these companies from Europe that know what they're doing. So optimize for world class, that's better said than done. It's hard to find these people, but it's hard to pay them. That's actually the biggest problem. But I think like when you're optimizing and you're thinking like your choice is like, okay, this guy, I don't like him that much, but he can, pick up the phone for, call real estate developers in France. I think every time you make that kind of decision, these people are also important, but if you make that decision, you need to think about like, I'm gonna need this kind of guy, but like much smarter, much better, much leaner in 2 years. So why don't I build him? Like, why don't I find already someone who is really, really good at it, or I can actually work with? And this is like the future aspect, because I worked in M&A, and in buying smaller micro caps, so up to 10 million ARR businesses, most acquirers discount local revenue. So if you're a business selling into France, if you don't work with a French M&A acquirer, so like a software aggregator or a strategic one, you will have a discounted valuation because of that, like because you're just selling into one region. And that's because that's a risk factor for any acquirer who is abroad. They will discount it, they will give you a lesser valuation. I think it's pretty important. Like every business owner, every founder comes into a business and has like either profit incentive, or like you basically want to sell the business at some point. This is pretty important, because at some point you're going to have this discussion. They're going to look at your revenue mix. It's mostly France, and they're going to say, okay, I think you should either find a French buyer, or we'll discount this revenue and give you less valuation. And I've seen it done thousands of times. US revenue is the best revenue, and that's for a good reason. But if you have like very well dispersed revenue over Europe, that's also great. And I think like that shows that your product is horizontal enough and has an easy enough go-to-market that you can actually, acquire can take your product and start selling it in the US tomorrow. I think there is a lot of boutique shops, like M&A boutique shops, that think they could buy a business like yours and then sell somewhere else. But if they think that, they'll discount your business a lot because they'll take into all of the risks of doing that, and they'll try to do that, and for that, you're not going to get the best valuation out of it. So it's quite important. And for lastly, I just put this quote, and I think it's pretty, it's self-explanatory. If you're doing a software business, there is no objective reason why it shouldn't be international. Like, I think if you're not doing something very niche for which is your country exclusive, I think in that category what comes about is like accountant tools, for example. They're super messy. It's like always local, always like related to local laws. I know you have aspects in your software which are probably related to local laws, like real estate developers that is specific. But if that's not the core product, there is no objective reason for you to go abroad. So I would definitely try to encourage you to do that. So yeah, thank you. I hope there is at least some learnings from it, and happy to answer any questions or just drink beers after if you're up for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for staying.
The others are